Hello, welcome to our podcast, Afterthoughts. It's our podcast, not yours. This is a podcast where we talk about our first impression of a movie, and after some time we rewatch the movie and we talk about our second opinion of the movie, as well as a related topic. So I'm here with my co-host Coleman Taylor Thomas. Hey, Coleman.
That's what they call me. Hi, I'm Coleman.
Yep, and who knows why.
No one knows.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
So this week we are talking about a movie that I wasn't excited to watch this again, but at the same time I knew it would be good. It'd be good for the podcast. So
for the sake of the podcast.
Gosh, I didn't want to watch it, but you hadn't seen the movie at all, so you had to watch it twice this week.
I know, it was a long movie too, so it was great. It's great.
Yeah, the movie we're watching this week is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. It took everything in me to not mock the title just now.
You should have done
really
it.
Pulling back. We're professional. I gotta talk about this like it's a real thing.
At least there's a colon in this one, right? I'm right about that.
Yeah. What would it be like if it was Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice? That doesn't make any sense.
Superman Dawn. That's the last name.
Okay. All right. So, when did you watch this for the first time? What day?
Oh gosh. Man, I think it was Sunday night.
Okay, you watched it Sunday, and then you watched it again.
It was Monday night, and then I watched it last night.
Okay. That's great. I watched it in March, and then at some point, like last night or Thursday night. It was Thursday.
Okay.
Whew. And we decided since you were watching it so close together that you would watch the theatrical cut. Mm-hmm. And then the Ultimate Edition. So this is first impression of the theatrical cut, second impression of the Ultimate Edition.
And 5.5 hours of movies.
Oh my gosh. So much movie. So much Zack Snyder. Zack Snydering.
And Batman.
And Batman.
Except for I can't do his Batman voice in this movie because it's fake.
It's modulated. I'm fine with that. I think it's less comical.
Yeah.
But, I do really like his eyes, his glowing white eyes.
Yeah. Why? Because it's just like the comics?
It's so cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, but...
And it might be where praise ends.
The one bit of praise you give this movie. Batman the eyeballs.
Yeah. Oh, also, spoilers for all the movies every week. Do we have to say that?
I think we do,
I got some notes about that. I was like... We're 2 episodes in and we didn't say that at all, and it's like, yeah, spoilers for everything.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie yet, oh well, now you're going to hear about it.
Yeah, so spoilers. Okay, so should we talk about our first impression of BVS, which sounds like BVS sounds like a DC STD.
I was like, guys, I'm watching BBS tonight, and they were like, yeah, you're watching Vacation Bible School? I don't understand.
Yes, that's great.
Oh, it was the worst. It was the worst!
Okay. What did you think the first time you saw this movie?
Okay, well... So, it's kind of not fair, because I had heard so much about this movie before ever watching it. And there's
That's true. You heard a lot.
And so many spoilers came out already, so, I already knew the Martha thing at the end. I already knew the general gist of the movie. There was just, the overall idea of it. I guess I didn't know. So, I guess just going into it, it was bad, but not as bad as I thought. And I guess that's just, not fair, because I knew everyone was like, this movie is garbage. Very few people were like, this movie is awesome. So going in, I'm like, well, I'm not. My expectations are as low as they could ever get. So
that's true.
I guess just naturally, it's not going to be as bad as what I picture as the absolute worst. Because there were still, overall, it had a lot of it was still had the structure and characters and things were in it. It wasn't just a complete thing thrown on the screen. It just wasn't completed, I guess. They could have done more to make it better. So,
yeah,
bad, but not as bad as ever made it out to be. And then, like, things like Lex. I didn't like Lex. Some people like Lex, and I know a lot of people do not like Lex, and that's something I just still resonated with. I was like, Lex, this is not a good interpretation of Lex Luthor, and never what I expected it to be.
No. Like, this performance is like your friend doing a funny impression of Lex Luthor.
Right.
Like, in your bedroom after high school. Like, it's not, I don't believe him to be Lex. I just see Jesse Eisenberg doing a really weird interpretation of this character. It's bizarre. That's interesting though. I didn't think about how you would be going in with the lowest of expectations.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because I wasn't pumped for this. I thought the movie looked bad from all of the trailers. I thought they were showing us way too much stuff. And yeah, I just wasn't pumped about this movie at all. But I went in, like, I guess with low expectations as well. And I just, like, I'm prepared to just read you the text I sent you. It's just like, my main thing I remember coming out of the movie was just like, was that like a finished product? I felt like I was watching the like a rough cut of just the footage that they got. You know, it like didn't feel like it was put together properly. And maybe that's because, you know, they had to cut things out last minute. Like, this Ultimate Edition is way more what Zach wanted it to be than what was theatrical released. So maybe it was last minute changes that made it feel really clunky and disjointed.
Yeah.
Whew, man. Yeah, I was just like, but at the same time, I feel like I had some strong feelings for it because I do like those characters. And there is clearly something there. Like, in this movie, there is something worth talking about. There's a story worth telling. It's just told very poorly, but there is something, ultimately there's something good there. It's just it's hard to get to.
I just thought, like, another thing is there was just too much going on. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So, like, my first time I kind of just wanted to, like, just not think about it a lot and think about, sorry, my cat is running around.
Perfect.
Okay. No, so there was just too much going on, and like you said, the characters, like, I really have a lot invested in these characters, but, like, Batman is just showing up in this movie, but you already have Superman there, so, like, it was weird, and we couldn't totally develop Batman.
Right. It was like this weird mixed bag of, like, we're gonna assume, the filmmakers are gonna assume you know a lot about these characters and a lot about these worlds, so we're just gonna like skip over explanation or exposition for these characters or these worlds. But then at the same time, we still see the Wayne parents die. You know, there's still things that are spelled out for us. It's like, it's bizarre to pick and choose which ones they decide to show us and which ones are like, oh, you know this guy. You know Batman. I don't need to go over the whole thing. Like, I can't even think of where this comes from, if it's in the movie or not, or if it was like something I read about, but it was like, this Batman is supposed to be a Batman that's been doing this for years. Like, he's a veteran vigilante. But I don't know if that comes from the movie. Like, when in the movie is that ever said? Or, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's given to me or if it's just something that I picked up on outside of the movie, but there's so much of this that's like assumed and also at the same time spelled out, and it's bizarre to go back and forth between the two.
Yeah. So I guess a good question to ask is, what do you think of Man of Steel? Considering this is a sequel.
Like Man of Steel. Yeah, I didn't like Man of Steel. One of the main things I didn't like about it was just I felt like it was similarly clunky.
Yeah.
Like with the flashbacks and like cutting to random things, I just felt like the story wasn't super strong throughout, and we were just sort of all throughout the map. And I guess it's just like, I feel like there wasn't a ton of thought put into either of these stories. You know, it's just like these fun action movies with not a lot of thought to who these characters are or why they're doing what they're doing. So I was not a fan of Man of Steel.
No. So I guess that also added to your low expectations coming in.
Yeah. I mean, this opening would have been really cool in Man of Steel. Like, I think that's something that was missing from Man of Steel was, like, the human ground level element. You know, it's just like these two gods flying through and destroying the city.
Yeah.
And Superman supposedly cares about the people of Metropolis or, like, the people that he's close to, but he still is just, like, destroying this entire city. But if we had, in the third act of Man of Steel, if we had, maybe not even Batman, but if we just had people on the ground and how it was affecting them, characters that we were invested in, like, it would have been great. I mean, they did it a little bit. You know, we tracked, like, Perry White, but
right.
He's barely a character in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the opening scene of this movie, Batman vs. Superman, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really cool to just get another vantage point of all the destruction going on.
I thought it was cool, too. I mean, yeah, I wrote that down. I think the intro is really cool. It's a really cool way to sort of track with Bruce Wayne, but there is still, like, dumb stuff in it that drives me crazy. Like, he's on, it opens with him like driving into the city, and he calls somebody up at the Bruce, the Wayne Tower or whatever. He's like, "Hey, get everyone out of the building."
Right.
Like, that's something they need to be told. And then it cuts to them looking at the destruction, and they're like, "Oh, okay, let's get everyone out." Bruce Wayne said we need to get out.
Right.
Like maybe there's some element of, like, okay, the boss man is telling us we can go, so we know for sure we can go. But still, it's just like, yeah, man, the city's being destroyed.
Of course,
get everyone out of the building.
Come on, you can put this together.
There's, like, little stuff like that throughout. It was like, man, just think about it for a second. Like, with stuff like this, I always just feel like writing was clearly rushed or just not thought about too much, and it's just like the priority of the film is these visual moments.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's the destruction of the city, it's Batman going to save, it's all these really big sort of moments, and not like character beats and story and script stuff. So
yeah,
it just drives me crazy.
It was definitely the structure that brought it down for me in the first viewing. Mm-hmm. And how did you feel about the, like, climactic Martha part, which is supposed to be, like, I suppose the climax of the movie right then and there?
I don't know. It feels it's too much, like, it's too convoluted for me to really enjoy it. It doesn't feel like an organic moment.
Oh, no, not at all.
It feels like, oh, did you like writers were talking like, hey, did you know that that Clark Kent's mom's also named Martha? That's really cool. We could do something there. It doesn't feel like it came up. It felt like tacked on. Like, in that moment, he was like, we have to find Martha.
Yeah.
We have to save Martha. Like, why wouldn't you say my mom?
My mom, right. Yeah, no.
Unless he's like, it's this weird thing of, like, maybe he's still trying to protect his secret identity. But that's the thing. In that moment, I'm wondering, I'm not thinking, oh, this is an emotional moment. I'm thinking, why is Superman doing what he's doing? Like, why is he saying it like that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, in that moment, you shouldn't be questioning what your character is doing. It should be clear.
Right.
Why he's doing it the way he's doing it. And so, yeah, stuff like that just, like, threw me out of it. And then Batman, like, freaks out.
I know. Like, since it's the climax of the movie, I seriously thought right along the same line, but even, like, more, I was like, did, like, writers come together and be like, hey, did you know that Batman and Superman's moms have the same name? Let's make a movie about it. No, let's keep that part and structure everything around it.
Everything around. Build it all around. Yeah. And I understand that it's like a traumatic thing for Batman. It always has been. His parents died. It's like always been character motivation and, like, foundation for who that character is. Mm-hmm. But this story has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
You know, we get flashbacks to them, we get dream sequences, everything.
Yeah.
Like him visiting that grave 1,000,000 times. So I understand that it's traumatic, but the story, if that's the beat we're trying to follow, if that's the thread that they wanted to build to, then the plot should mirror it.
Yeah.
You know, the plot should parallel that emotional structure, so that when those two moments meet up in the climax, it makes emotional sense.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big issue I had after the first viewing, was just like, I didn't feel like Superman was Superman or Batman was Batman. Like, this guy, Batman it's DC Comics is detective comics. Batman is a detective. He's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and he spends so much time investigating white Portuguese, and by investigating I mean Google searching. Like literally he Google searches white Portuguese and then finds out all these things. It's crazy. He spends so much time on that. He never once is like, who is Superman?
Yeah.
I mean, I can figure out who this guy is, who his mom is, what his mom's name is, and maybe we can become friends because our moms have the same name.
And also not just Superman, but Wonder Woman. Maybe this will come out more in Wonder Woman, but if she was around in the 1910s and 20s, I feel like he would already know about her.
He would already know about her. How did he miss that? Yeah. And I hate that scene too. It's just like, is this you? Like he sends the picture and he's like, you are Batman. This is how you're figuring this out? And you're just like emailing her, hey, is this a picture of you?
Hey,
What's going on here?
Who are you?
And then later he asks her like that dumb scene from the trailer that like feels like it was written just for the trailer. When she shows up and he's like, is she with you? I thought she was with you.
Oh my gosh.
How are you asking that?
I don't even.
You've been meeting with her the whole movie. Of course she's with you.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. Because that comes up a little bit more in my, the reason for that ad comes up more in my second impression, but yeah, the first time I saw that totally the same thing. I was like, why are you, there's no way you thought she was with him. It's not possible.
No way. Batman is too dumb in this movie. You are supposed to be, even, like, a veteran Batman at that. Like, this is not new Batman. He's been doing it for a long time.
But that's another thing.
He should be smarter than
a veteran Batman? Because all I see in Gotham is crime and crime and crime. If he's been doing it for 20 years, what's he doing?
That's true. And people don't know anything about him. He's this weird, mysterious figure. It's just confusing all around. That's true. I don't know. I don't know how long he's been doing it. I don't know very much about him at all.
I think they said 20 years or something, but it seems like Gotham is just still full of crime and all this stuff.
How do you feel about Batman as a murderer?
I mean, I don't know. I think that plays into more of my second impression of what I guess his ideology. I mean, as a character, I don't know. In the earlier comics, I think he did kill people, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's gone back and forth. Different runs he does, different runs he doesn't. Yeah. But I don't know. The thing, if he was okay with killing people as he is in this movie, I would want something that explains that. I mean, I guess that would feel like it was being spoon-fed to us, but I just I don't know.
It kind of does.
I don't know. Maybe that's just a preference thing then. I don't want my Batman to kill people.
Right. Yeah.
I want him to be driven to, if need be. I want him to struggle with that. That could be a really big character obstacle for him. Mm-hmm. Like it was in Batman Begins. He wants justice, but isn't sure what justice is.
Yeah.
The one thing before we get into second opinions was the one thing that I did not understand until the second viewing, and maybe it was partly due because of additional scenes in the Ultimate Edition, was I was so upset with Superman because he just seemed like such a giant hypocrite. He's the ultimate vigilante, and he doesn't like Batman, and I couldn't figure out why he was so against Batman. Mm-hmm. At first it seems like maybe he's just wanting to report about him, write a story, he wants more information to see who he is or what he's like, but he just seemed so against Batman for so long, and I didn't understand it. He just felt like a giant hypocrite to me.
Yeah.
Dude, why wouldn't you... I don't know. Yeah, I guess Batman's motives weren't clear, but that wasn't clear to me in the first viewing of the movie. Because it's such a quick pace. It's hard to keep track of what's going on. This is the fastest melting glacier I've ever seen. Because it was still 2.5 hours long. It felt like the movie was going on for days, but we just jumped around so much. It was hard to keep track.
Yeah. But you had a different opinion of that on the second one? Motives were more clear, or?
Yes. I think motives. I think a lot of things were more clear in the second viewing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we jump into second opinions.
Yeah. Although I will give one more note. I thought Perry White, Lawrence Fishburne, was terrible in this movie.
Terrible. Yes.
Every line he
terrible,
gave, I was like,
also,
the delivery is so bad for this joke, for this whatever. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But, yeah.
It's like he's terrible, but in the same sense, it's like so fun to cut to him because he was so bad. Not the performance, I don't think, but just the lines he had to deliver. Like he was such a cliche news reporter, like editor. It was, oh my gosh.
In other news, water, wet.
Wet. Yeah, come on. Just like, and it speaks to the odd pacing of this movie. When Lois Lane is like, I need to go to Washington. He's like, Coach, you gotta fly Coach or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, I'm going. And then like, literally like 2 lines later, he walks back into the scene and he's like, shouldn't you be on a plane by now? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Like, what is this? It's just random stuff like that. Yeah. Molly was watching the movie with me, and she watched it with me both times. And she turned to me at the part where Perry White was like, when he's like, hey, where's Clark? Where does he go? Where does he go? And he asks around. Yeah. She said that was the most enjoyable part of the movie for her.
That's awesome.
It's a really funny beat, but yeah. I want to know what you think, because you got to watch it pretty close together, so you could remember. Maybe you could remember the first viewing better, so you probably have a better sense of like what was added, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because it was hard for me sometimes. I was like, was this in the first one? Mm-hmm. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, it was brutal watching this movie twice in 1 week. I don't know. It was because first of all, it's long, and then second of all, it's just, I don't know, nothing changed too much. Even at the extended, there were a few things I liked. Like, I guess I'll go off first what the changes I did like from the theatrical to the extended. Explaining more of how Lex is setting it all up, I thought was interesting. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, why are people who were put in jail by Batman killing other people who were put in jail by Batman just because they have a brand on them? It didn't make sense to me. And then in the second one, there's that like quick scene of how Lex actually set it up so Superman would hate Batman. And I did like that, because that made more sense. And then the desert scene made more sense of why people like hated Superman and stuff. Because in the first viewing, I was like, I don't get it. So those were the 2 things that cleared up. So
stuff was definitely more clear this time. But I wrote down that because things are more clear this second time around, and because things are more clear because of this Ultimate Edition and additional scenes, it just makes me dislike the theatrical version even more. Yeah. Because with both movies, there's generally speaking, there's something wrong with your plot if all you need to do is take out like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue and the whole thing falls apart. Like, clearly it's being strung together like too much. Like there's too many things that sort of hinge upon each other. And it just is so convoluted. If you take out one of the little tent poles, the whole thing collapses, and you don't understand why things are happening. Because it is a pretty interesting story once you understand it, like all the things Lex is trying to do, but it's just too many things. And it does become more clear in the second viewing, but I still had lots of questions. It was still like, it was moving so fast, I was still just like, who are these people? Where are we? Why is anybody doing what they're doing? That's another thing in both viewings. It was just like, there are very little establishing shots. And so it's just like the first couple seconds of a scene is like, where are we? Oh, okay. Instead of being in that scene, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we just waste time. It's like, how long has it been since that last scene? Has it been a couple days? Where are we? Who is this? What are they doing? Over and over again.
What are we doing?
3 hours.
Why am I here? I don't know.
Crazy, man.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So for me, the second time, what stood out a lot more was the symbolism of what they were supposed to stand for. So, like, they're not just Batman and Superman, but like the big ideas that they stand for. So like, and like kind of what you were going into saying, like, why does Superman hate Batman? And like, because Batman is like, all the criticism of like the opening scene of Superman destroying everything, just to fight this guy, and like how it kind of compares to other things that, like 9/11, I guess. And so just how they're, like the big things they stand for. So Superman thinking everyone has civil rights and should deserve a chance, while Batman's like punishing crime before it happens kind of thing. Those stood out a lot more the second viewing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, this movie isn't just about Batman and Superman. It's about these huge ideas pitted against one another. And then, like, Lex is kind of just this chaos in the middle, making it all happen kind of thing. So those stood out a lot more the second time, rather than just saying, okay, this is Batman, Superman, and Lex. Why are they doing what they're doing? Rather, they're representing these huge ideas rather than just who they would normally be in the comics.
Yeah. But I guess that's what I would want this movie to be. I would love it if this movie was just more clean cut and less sort of conspiracy theory, all these things are happening. If it was just like, I'm Batman and I think we should stop crimes before they happen. And I'm Superman and I think everybody deserves justice. We should bring them to trial. We should work with the law, and Batman is an outlaw. And it was these two fighting about fundamentally different opinions about how to fight crime. That would be awesome. But what we get is like this weird misunderstanding and like fighting under false pretenses, and just like there's like 7 or 8 lines of Superman in that when they finally fight in the 3-hour movie, when they finally fight like 2.5 hours in and they finally have their 5-minute fight, there's like 7 or 8 lines of Superman being like, just listen, I gotta tell you something, just listen to me, I gotta tell, like, it's crazy. He doesn't just come out and tell him what's happening. And that's not what I want. I wanted these two to fight for real things and to be conflicted. Like, I understand where Batman's coming from, I understand where Superman's coming from, and I want them to fight, and I want to see who comes out on top and how that happens. That's what I wanted. But this, like, even more so in the second viewing, is like, it just feels like a big excuse to have two characters fight without doing the hard groundwork of creating two genuinely opposing sides.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's so satisfying when you write two characters who really conflict and have two sort of authentic points of view that conflict.
I guess I think they do have conflicting points of view, but kind of going into you're saying, I didn't think it ended well. Like, it slowly fell apart at the end, and I think the reason I think that happened is because they tried to make two different kinds of movies, and they should have just stuck with one or the other. So obviously you got DC and Marvel's got their set structure, how they make their movie. It's kind of like just a lot of action, and there's some thinking in there, but it's mostly going to be like comedic action, light entertaining movie, and they do that really well. While this movie starts out with really deep thoughts, deep ideologies, like thinking about what these stand for, and then kind of devolves into trying to be a Marvel movie, which is why I think that one line was added about like that's like totally a Marvel like joking line, and it was kind of just thrown in.
That's
and
true.
Then they throw in Doomsday, and it's like a big fight right at the end that kind of, like, doesn't really have much to do with how the movie started. And because I think they're afraid that if they just have this deep thinking movie, people are going to expect this Marvel movie and then go out and be disappointed. But then, so they added that part at the end, but they still don't want to be Marvel. They want to set themselves apart from Marvel. And I think they should have just picked one or the other. Either be just like Marvel and do that, or be this deep thinking thing. And even if you get bad ratings or people are disappointed because it wasn't Marvel like they expected, I would have still appreciated that more, because I think it would have been a better overall film.
That's a really good point, because I think, you know, we had like a really good, deep, thoughtful movie, The Dark Knight, and it feels like DC's been trying to keep that going for three or four movies, you know, Dark Knight Rises and Man of Steel, and it just hasn't been working as well as The Dark Knight, and now they're feeling a lot of pressure from the ever-expanding Marvel Universe that's just been knocking it out of the park over and over again. So that totally lines up. I think they are sort of torn between what they want to do and what they feel like they need to do to make these movies successful.
Yeah. So I think that was my main takeaway the second time. I think if they had just picked one or the other, it could have been a fantastic movie. And honestly, I wish they had stuck with what they started with. I wish they had stuck with these are two huge, they're not just Batman, Superman. This is a really thinking movie about where we stand as America, what we think, like, your perspective is and how that because that was the whole Martha thing at the end. That's what that really was, even though it was delivered so poorly from a character point of view. Like, obviously you're not going to say your mom's name, you're going to say mom, and then Batman's over exaggerated. But really what that is taking those two ideologies and connecting them and showing, like, humanizing each other, showing they have more in common than they think. Mm-hmm. And that's what that, like, really stood for. But because they tried to make these two movies together, it just fell apart instead of just being one kind of movie.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that does speak to, like, to my second impression of the movie. Like, obviously in the first viewing, I really just disliked it so much. It was hard to really think of it in a truly critical way. Mm-hmm. It was just sort of piling on. But in the second time, it is really clear that there is something going on here, and that there is a really interesting story with a lot of interesting ideas. It's just not. More so, this made me think, like, okay, there is something good here. It's just not executed well.
Yeah.
Just on a lot of the fronts, it just sort of falls apart, which is a bummer. Like, I want there to be good DC movies, you know? Like, I want this to be a good movie, and it'd be awesome if it kicked off this universe in a really fun way, or in a thoughtful way. To, like, imagine a Justice League movie if this movie landed. You know, all those deep thoughts that are the foundation of, okay, so now what happens when there's a huge team of these guys?
Right.
And there's 6 or 7 different perspectives and thoughts on what justice is. You know, that would be incredible.
Right, and that's, like,
it'd be really cool.
The whole thing in this movie. Like, Superman is this all-powerful being. What rules, like, apply to him? So then if you make a whole team of these people, like, what rules do they abide by? Are they above morality? Like, it would have just been so interesting instead of devolving into, like, just action at the end. Also, I really enjoyed the soundtrack. I don't know how you feel about the soundtrack. I really like the music. I loved Lex's little theme.
Okay.
I don't know why. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah. I do make fun of the score a little bit, but I don't know. Like, for me, I teeter on this love-hate relationship with the score. Like, that Wonder Woman theme, sometimes it's really cool. Sometimes it's like it's a little on the nose. I don't know. I teeter. I can't decide if I like it or not. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I did write down 2 quotes that aren't super serious, but I thought they were funny. Okay, I wrote, Martha Kent said it best. People hate what they don't understand. And that's this movie. And then I wrote down, Batman says it best. The movie only makes sense if you force it to. And I only changed 1 word out of that quote.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's word for word.
Right.
So there you go.
That's perfect.
Yeah. That sort of summarizes my opinions of this movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, the ultimate cut is superior. If you liked the theatrical version, I think you'll probably love the ultimate cut because it's way better.
I agree.
Except too long. That's the only thing. It's better, but it's at a cost.
Yeah. But if you love the theatrical, you might just want more and love it because it's more, so.
All right, well, if that's all we have to say about BVS, let's briefly talk about our second topic for this episode, since we're going a little long. And it's basically like the idea that it's obviously really popular right now to put good guy versus good guy. And we want to talk about why that's so interesting and what's really going on there in film and television and even probably in books. It's probably happening in books. I don't know. I don't read.
Who reads anymore when you can watch TV?
Come on. At the very least, I'm going to listen to a book. Why don't you read me the book? I'm not going to... You want me to turn the pages?
Yeah, you want me to look at it? Come on.
Why don't you just read it to me? So, yeah, that's our topic. What do you think is so interesting about seeing good guy versus good guy?
Not what's so great about reading, but what I think. I guess one reason it's so popular right now is just, I guess, the political election coming up. I mean, we're all American. We're all at the center. We all want the same thing, to just have a country that runs. But at the same time, we're pitting ourselves against each other, even though we all want the same goal technically. Like, we all want to have a great president that just brings up this country. And so, but we're pitting, like, because we have two different ideologies of what that looks like, we're pitting ourselves against each other, when really we have the same goal, high level, if that makes sense. So I think that's one reason it's really popular right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't think of it like that. Huh. Well, I wrote that I think what's inherently interesting about seeing two guys fight each other is, like, when you write your hero, when you write a good character, or, I mean, a good guy, you write them with a point of view. You write them with a character motivation. And it's usually one that you want your audience to relate to or to root for.
Right.
So you give them a purpose that people can relate to. So if you have two characters with two equally valid character motivations and points of view, then it's just like, it's this inherent conflict that's really interesting. And even more interesting when you can't decide which point of view should win, or which one is right, or which one is wrong. Like, it's just like these two guys who have two very distinct ideas going at it. Or girls, sorry.
Or man and
so
woman,
that's like inherently interesting. Oh yeah, it could be that. Yeah. So it's like, if you have two characters that your audience can relate to, then that's really interesting and compelling, just inherently.
Right. And I think that's what this movie was about, to show that there's good and bad to each side, that they had, like, even, I think in the end of this one, you're supposed to kind of side more with Superman, but even still, Superman had wrong parts of his, like, he caused so much destruction and so many things went wrong, even if you're supposed, just in my opinion, I think you're supposed to side with him more. And I think that applies in, like, real life. There's good and bad to both sides, and it's more about compromising and finding the similarity between both.
And I think it's like, in this movie, as a specific example, I don't identify with Lex at all. Like, I like, me personally, I don't understand why he wants to do the things that he wants to do. To me, it feels like he's just serving this plot, whereas the Joker in The Dark Knight is like, I understand that character doesn't believe in the system that we have. He believes in chaos. He believes in all that stuff because there's injustice within the system that we've created. So I understand his character motivation. But with villains, just generally speaking, it's really hard to give them, like, motivations that an audience can identify with, because nobody wants to take over the world. You know, it's true. Like, people have true motives, and it's hard to give a villain that. So if you can just replace your villain with a hero, it just works better with storytelling and with your audience.
Yeah, it's very true. And honestly, that's why I think it's really hard to create a really good villain, because with the good guys, you spend the whole time building their character. With villains, you get very few scenes with them and building them.
Right. And in the world of, like, big budget television and film, producers and studio heads, they will force creators to make sure that the heroes are relatable. And they will make sure that, like, hey, add this scene so that people know why he's doing this. We don't want him to seem too callous. We don't want him to seem too heartless. We want people to like him. He needs to be likable because he's going to carry a franchise or a show. So, yeah, there is a ton of extra thought and effort put into making sure that heroes are relatable and likable. But, it helps. It helps us to identify with them and to root for them, because you're just adding more and more to their point of view and their perspective and why they're doing what they're doing, which I think only really helps your character.
Yeah, that's
if it's
really,
not, like, spoon-fed.
It's really interesting. Yeah. So, yeah, and that adds a really interesting aspect, like we've been talking about, if you relate to both of them, because they're forced to create two relatable characters, then pitting them one against the other. Yeah, that's a really interesting dynamic.
And I didn't want to, like, in talking about BVS, I didn't want to specifically bring up Civil War because, you know, it's not a super fair comparison. But that's one thing I really enjoyed about Civil War. Like, it has its hang-ups, it has a lot of its own flaws, but I truly was like, I understand where Tony's coming from, and I understand where Steve is coming from. you know, these are two genuine characters with genuine ideas, and they've been through different things, and I understand why they're against each other. So it was really like it was hard to pick, like, you know, hashtag Team Cap, hashtag Team Team Iron Man.
Gotta have the hashtag in front.
Which hashtag do I pick? I don't know. I'm so conflicted.
Oh my gosh! What have we come to?
Oh, by the way, hashtag Afterthoughts Podcast.
Oh, hashtag
you can use that
Afterthoughts.
for whatever you want.
Of course.
Just make sure you use the hashtag Afterthoughts Podcast. Okay, let me ask you about a movie that you and I both really love, real quickly. Scott Pilgrim.
Okay.
G-Man is, you know, the villain, the seventh evil X. I don't think he's that fleshed out of a villain. I don't think he's really that well developed, but I don't care. Like, in his role in Scott Pilgrim, I think it's awesome, and I love that performance, and I think he serves that movie really well, even though we don't know anything about him. We don't know why he loves Ramona, or if he really even does, or if there's something in his backstory that speaks to why he is the way that he is, but still I think he's an effective villain. Even though he's not given what a hero gets, like a really true sense of perspective or point of view.
That's true. That's very true. But at the same time, I also think that's the kind of movie Scott Pilgrim is. So,
sure,
it's more about Scott and, I guess, his love life and Ramona as well and all of that, rather than any of the X's. The X's are kind of just like chaotic things going on, that kind of like baggage that they have to deal with. But it's really about them and Knives as well, and everything else that's going on in his life. So him, like, I think keeping it mysterious is even really better, because it's like, I don't really know much about this guy, but he's back here. Like, I don't know what happened with him and Ramona, really. I got the vague overview, but I know he's here now trying to stop us from getting together.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I'm glad you said that, because, like, in a lot of ways, like, if we were to shift that movie to different perspectives throughout the film, Scott is probably a villain to a lot of the other people in the movie.
That's very true. That's very true.
But we are so anchored in who Scott is and what he wants and why he does the things that he does, that it makes sense for him to sort of be a villain to other people from different points of view or perspectives. If you sort of spin the movie around like that, it makes sense. If you were to change it around and Scott was the villain, I think he would be a really effective villain.
Totally. Especially from points of view of like Kim and Knives. Mm-hmm. He's like so evil to them for most of the movie, right up till the very end.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
That's a great movie.
Probably number one.
We could just do a whole. Right? We could probably do a whole episode about how great Scott Pilgrim is.
That would probably be like at least 2 hour long special.
Yeah, a 2 hour long special that's like, what'd you think your first opinion, your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth? We've seen the movie so many times.
All the times you saw it in theaters, what did you think?
Well, the 10th time I watched it, this is what really stuck out to me.
I really picked up all the nuances of him jumping out the window.
Oh, gosh. That would be awesome. You know, we should save that. We should pocket that. That's probably a pretty good, like, 100th episode kind of a thing.
We made it to 100!
We're just going to talk about Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, man.
That would be great.
That would be 2 years from now if we did that.
Yeah.
Let's do it!
We'll do it. Yeah. Let's get to it. Okay, great. All right, so I think that's our episode.
That's it.
Longest one yet.
Yeah.
It's a good one. I do, before we sign off and tell people to follow us on various things, I want to thank our great reviewer. Our very first one, a beautiful, glowing 5-star review. Thank you so much.
Whoever
it's
you
really
are
cool
out
of
there.
you to do that. Whoever you are. Mexican something.
Mohican, come on.
I'm sorry. Mohican. Mexican Mohican. I apologize.
Thank
you so much for your
review. Gotta say their full name.
Right. And if you want your own glowing little shout out, then just write us a review.
A little review.
It's that simple. Just a little clickety-clack, 5 stars. Whatever.
Just a clickety-clack.
Yeah, it's typing.
Oh. It's probably because you have a Mac, right?
Right. If you write clickety-clack as your review and then put 5 stars, that's fine with me.
That's it. That's all we need.
Whatever. That's all you gotta do.
Take it.
That's the bare minimum. Fine. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Joshua Kazemi. Coleman is on Twitter now. And it's...
At Cole Taylor, as in Taillored.
Perfect. Great name.
Great name.
You can subscribe to my YouTube channel where the podcast gets uploaded over there every week if that's sort of what you prefer. Or I guess this is the same audio. So if you're listening to this on YouTube already, this is getting complicated. Anyways, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, check us out, write a review, tell your friends about it, all that stuff.
All of those things. Every single one. Go down that list.
Yes. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week.
See you next week.